All right, so as I was saying, um, I got in touch with Malik. He told me his dad had gone crazy, but I tried to get the videos from him. But Malik's dad was kind of on the run. I wanted to get the videos so I could study basketball, so I could study, the moves I did and everything, and study the swag flow and study all that stuff. But I kind of tried to make things happen, and my friend recommended that I have Kenny stay with me because he was kind of on the run, and he had all of the videos in storage units across Los Angeles. So I was letting him stay with me so he can get the videos from the storage units, but then he was acting way too crazy. And then finally, he told me, he was like, oh, I said that I had those videos from ARC, but I can't find them. And I was like, but he was acting really crazy and being disrespectful to me. So I went back to my place and I told him, you're not allowed back until you get the videos. And then the white woman who he was kind of like dating at the time, she was calling me. She was like, Ryan, you need to let Kenny get his stuff. And and she was like, you have schizophrenia. And I was like, shut up, bitch. And then the police came, and Kenny and the woman were trying to get their stuff out of my place. But I was telling Kenny, the whole deal was you get the videos, and you're not upholding your end of the deal. And he's basically trying to steal my apartment. He was acting way too crazy. So then they were trying to be like, Ryan has schizophrenia because that's what my dad told Kenny, that he thought that I had schizophrenia. Because Kenny knew that my dad, my dad went to every one of my games growing up. My dad loved me. But then Kenny was like, why is your dad not talking to you, Ryan? He talked to my dad, and my dad told him that he thought I had schizophrenia. But I don't. My dad hasn't talked to me in 20 years. He hasn't seen me in 20 years. So, how can he make such assertions? But anyways, but then the police were like, well, this police woman was like, if he has schizophrenia, then why you guys treat him like this? And then they ended up kicking them out. But then Kenny came and broke in my apartment and took a lot of my stuff. And then I was staying in my car because I was scared at the time. And then when I finally, that was when I met my ex, my ex who ended up getting the abortion. So as I was saying, I met her at the Galleria. I told her that she looked beautiful. And she was going on a blind date set up by her friend Sylvie. She was a blind date with some Persian guy. But she was a drug addict, and she was a part of the whole hippie scene. And like I said, I was always satanic, anti-white. And I didn't realize that was satanic, though. I always thought that was, I studied. Growing up, like I said, my dad would get rap albums, and I would listen to the Lynch Mob and, P. Diddy and Biggie and Tupac but basically a lot of rappers, Jay-Z, all those guys, but a lot of the rappers who would be like, yeah, the black man is God, the white man's the devil, Wu-Tang Clan type of stuff, right? So I listened to all that. My dad played all that stuff growing up. Like when I would shoot baskets with my dad in the backyard, my dad would be playing rap music. And like I said, I would have been a star, but my dad messed up my shot and got the shoot-away machine and messed up my shot. But I'm not gonna get into details about it because I don't want to make a shooters think. But so, so I met my ex, and like I said, my ex had a daughter from an El Salvadorian guy. I discovered that she was a single mom after like the first date. She took me over to her place, and we had intercourse, but I discovered that she had a daughter because she showed all the pictures of her daughter, and it was a little brown daughter. And my ex was half Italian, half white, but she had a Jewish stepdad. And, probably because she had a Jewish stepdad, she was into race mixing, and she was probably brought up liberal, and she loved her Jewish stepdad. And, her mom betrayed her white dad. And I guess, she claimed that her white dad had was mentally ill or something. But her mom betrayed her white dad and then went with some Jewish guy, and probably the guy went crazy. Her dad probably went crazy, and but she was a leftist liberal, so she'd done a lot of drugs, and she had a brown daughter, with a Salvadorian guy. And but I was okay with it because, like I said, I saw myself as Jewish, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's cool. She's not racist. That's good. Because like I'll give some more examples of the way I saw things. So like my grandpa, like I said, my grandpa confused me because, my whole life I was anti-prison, kind of anti-police because I was like, yeah, I saw everything through a Darwinian lens. So I'm like, yeah, police are just white supremacy to maintain the white race, and they maintained the status quo. And, I was a communist. I wanted to dissolve the police because I wanted the black man to take over, the people of color to take over. But then, like I said, when I became a right winger for a little bit, I was the opposite, and I started to like the police, But then my grandpa told me, he was like, if you're in the flow, you don't want to hurt anybody, because that's dualistic software. So I'm like, okay, so maybe I should be, so I should be against prisons, because that doesn't really help people, and I don't want to hurt anybody. So I went back to being a communist, because my grandpa just confused me. But now I understand, like my grandpa would say, you don't want to hurt anybody, but you do allow prisons and stuff to, what my grandpa would say, to protect people from their dualistic software. So if someone has is expressing predator prey software, you have to put him in prison or jail to protect him and protect others from the consequences of his software, my grandpa would say. But you would ultimately not want to hurt him, but you want to help him to upgrade his software. But I went back to being anti-white, because I'm like, okay, yeah, transcend the ego. That means be anti-white supremacist. Fox News is just white supremacy, and they like jails, they like prison. QAnon likes jails and likes prison because they're racists. So I want to transcend racism, and I want to be transcending the ego and transcend dualistic software, because I didn't understand my grandpa's teachings. So I wanted to be for getting rid of prison and getting rid of police, but really I didn't realize I was still in dualistic software. But my software was predator prey toward white people, because I wanted to mix the white people and dissolve the white race and let all the black people free and brown people free from the prisons, But so I was still in dualistic software, but I didn't realize it, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm just transcending the ego. I want what's best for the prisoners, And like my friend Noah, who was also kind of communist, he's like, yeah, what really people need in prison is they need to be put in the center of a circle, and everybody tells them how much you love them, because that's, the criminals are really just the victims. And they're just the victims because they're the scapegoats of society, and they're the ones who they're the alienated members of society who are acting out due to oppression, due to white supremacy and shit. So I went back to that mode of being. So, like I said, when my ex is a single mom and she has a brown daughter, but in my mind I'm like, hey, that's kind of good. I see myself as Jewish. And again, my grandpa would say I was expressing dualistic software. I was not in the flow. I didn't discern that my, a single mom with a Salvadorian daughter, that can be an expression of dualistic software. Also, the fact that she was a drug addict, that could be an expression of dualistic software, and that she's not in the flow. But, I wanted to have a baby because, again, I was in dualistic software. I saw things through a Darwinian lens. And now I understand, but I didn't understand at the time what my grandpa taught. To see everything as one, see everything as energy. But I'll get to how I started to understand the flow later. But at that time, I was still anti-religious. I was basically a Satanist, anti-religious, anti-white. And so, like I said, the reason why I gravitated toward Darwinism was because that was anti-religious. I wanted to say, religion is just an epiphenomena of Darwinism. Kind of like, what's that guy's name? Weinstein. He's a Jewish guy, but I think his name's Brett Weinstein. That's what he kind of argues, right? That, religion, belief is just an epiphenomena of Darwinism. And the reason why we have beliefs is because it helps our genes to survive. So I saw things in that lens. So, like, for instance, my ex told me that she had the El Salvadorian ex, but she said he was abusive, right? But we all know that there's a lot of times there's not innocent victims, right? But we don't want to always blame the victim. Like in my case, yeah, it was pretty fucked up with the shoot-away machine, but in a lot of cases, it's not innocent victims. But, she told me that she had broke up with him 4 years ago, and now her daughter was 4 years old. But, I had studied from Karen Fisher, this white woman. She had this book, and she sees things through a Darwinian lens. And she's like, yeah, it's called the 4-year itch. And it's women will divorce their one man. They'll leave the one man so they can have another man. And that increases their genetic diversity of their offspring. So in my mind, I'm still looking at things through a Darwinian lens and not through a spiritual lens. Not, as my grandpa describes, a flow, seeing everything as one and transcending myself so I can have pure awareness. I'm still seeing things in a dualistic lens, and I just want to have a baby to be selfish so I can be superior, so I can spread my genes. And I'm thinking she's doing the same thing. She just wants to spread her genes. So rather than having discernment and only, having sex with someone if I'm, going to marry them or whatever, like I didn't plan to marry her, but I was selfish and I was saying things to a Darwinian lens. So so again, was I an innocent victim? Because she ended up hurting me really bad by getting an abortion. But was I an innocent victim? No, I wasn't. I made a mistake. My grandpa would say, wasn't my fault because I don't exist. The self doesn't exist, but it was my software. And my grandpa said you could upgrade your software. But so my software was at a lower level and I was selfish and self-indulgent and I didn't think about the consequences. I didn't have pure awareness. I didn't have pure discernment. And I, got her pregnant. But like I said, after I got her pregnant, I didn't know that she was pregnant at the time. She broke up with me. And this was our second month of dating. Like I said, the first month of dating, I tried to get her pregnant, but she didn't get pregnant. And I remember I was really sad and I started to cry because I really wanted to have a baby. And I actually liked her a lot. And I thought that if I could have the baby, I could stay with her because I liked her a lot. And I think the reason why I liked her was because, like I said, I've been abandoned by my mom and dad. I've been abandoned by my family. And having her gave me a lot of comfort. Like, it actually stopped my twitches. Like, I have twitches, and I studied that the reason why, like Tourette's twitches, like I developed them, is it's a call for your mom. Like, you see how I make those movements? It's a call for your mom. Because I was abandoned by my mom, after the shoot away and everything. And I developed this when I was in Kauai, when I was trying to call my mom, and I'm like, Mom, can I please see you and Dad? And my mom was like, we're never gonna see you, you fucking loser. And I'm like, I discovered the theory of everything. Can you guys help me get back into basketball? No, get up. No, talk about the past, you fucking idiot. We're never going to see you. You're fucking mentally ill. You need a doctor. So it was during that time when I started to develop these twitches. And what I studied is if you feel like you don't have any support and you feel like vulnerable, you start to make these twitches. And I heard that one theory is it's a call for your mom to help you. Because as a baby, you would make grunts and stuff if you were vulnerable and you needed help. So it could be a subconscious thing, but also my grandpa would say it's probably self-confirmatory and confirming the illusion that I'm a separate body. I don't know. I'd have to study more. But regardless, I liked my ex a lot. I liked being in a relationship with her, and I wanted to have a baby with her, and I wanted to stay with her. But like I said, I was still seeing things through a Darwinian lens, so I just wanted a baby so I could be superior. So I wasn't in clear discernment. I wasn't in pure awareness. And I made a stupid decision, but when the first month when I tried to get her pregnant, I already felt like she was going to break up with me. And when we would have intercourse, she started to put up a picture of her and her ex El Salvadorian boyfriend, her ex El Salvadorian baby dad, with her daughter, her little brown daughter. And she would put that up because I felt like she was going to break up with me. So I remember when she told me she wasn't pregnant the first month, I started to cry because I thought she was going to break up with me. And she did break up with me, but then we ended up getting back together. But like I said, my swag flow was off. And I think that part of that is because I didn't have the basketball videos. If my mom and dad would have just helped me, I could have got the basketball videos. I had the most swag flow out of anybody, but I'm not getting into details about that. But then, like I said, I ended up getting her pregnant the second month, which I wanted because, again, I was seeing things through a Darwinian lens, and I wanted to have a baby so I could be superior. But then the second month when then she broke up with me, and then when she broke up with me, she went with her friend to Escondido, like the day after she broke up with me, and that really hurt me a lot. But then she came back, and then she discovered that she was pregnant, And she even told me that she drank alcohol when she went with her friend. So I don't know if she could have, but she told me she didn't do anything. But regardless, she was pregnant, and she told me it was my baby. And I was like, well, I'm going to get a genetic test to make sure. And she's like, no, it's definitely your baby. You're the only one I've slept with and everything. And, she had broken up with me, but then we got back together. But then when we got back together, I was, my friend Bill was telling me that I should, she told me that she needed to get a cerclage because she had a short cervix because she had 3 abortions before. So she needed me to take care of her. And my friend Bill was like, yeah, you should really take care of her. That'll be good. And I saw it as an excuse to learn stuff because I'm like, okay, well, I'll learn how to clean and I'll learn how to cook because I've never done any of that stuff before. Because like I said, my mom and dad abandoned me in high school. I was the best player in the country, but then my shot got messed up because of the shoot-away machine. And then, I was starting point guard on varsity as a freshman, but then, my shot got messed up, shoot-away machine. My dad's telling me to do the wrong thing. It destroyed me. And then my mom and dad abandoned me. But the thing was, growing up, my mom and dad never taught me how to do anything. I never had to do any chores. I never learned how to cook. I never learned how to clean. I never did anything like that. And then my mom and dad abandoned me because my grandpa comes to me, and my grandpa's like, what Ryan really wants is independence. That's what he really wants. This is normal. kids around his age, they rebel against their dads because they want independence. I didn't want independence. My shot was messed up because the shoot-away machine. My grandpa was an idiot. So, but my mom and dad are like, okay, yeah, make him independent, get him out of our lives. So, but then they tried to make me independent and throw me out of their lives and be callous to me. But the thing was, they never taught me how to do anything. So how can you make me independent if you never taught me how to do anything? So I used this as an excuse. I was like, okay, I'll use my ex, I'm going to have a baby with her, but this will be an excuse. I'll learn how to clean. I'll learn how to cook. I'll do all that stuff. So I was being really good to her, and I was cleaning for her, and I was helping her out. But then the Halloween came, and she was like, and she told me that she was going to go to a kickback with her friend Sylvie. And like I said, I was always anti-white, and this would come back to haunt me because, Sylvie was a Jewish girl, and she's a hippie Jewish girl, and she's a part, how they say, like, the Jews kind of like degrade society through music and through, pop culture and stuff, and she's a part of that whole culture, like hippie festival culture and stuff. But anyways, she was with, she was friends with my ex, and she didn't like me because, and I even went on a double date with him, but my swag flow was off at the time, but during the double date, she didn't, they were like, my ex always smoked weed, and she smoked weed, and I don't smoke weed. And, but she just didn't like me. So, my ex told me that she was going to go to kickback with her friend Sylvia. This was Halloween. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I figured it's just a small kickback. But then the next week, my ex tells me, she says, Ryan, I'm going to go to the movies with my friends. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But I was like, can you send me some pictures? Because I just want to make sure you're okay. She said, so tomorrow you don't have to come over because I'm going to be at the movies with my friends. But then she admitted to me, okay, it's not the movies, it's a party. Because I caught her. Because I told her, okay, well, send me some pictures while you're at the movie. And she's like, and then she finally admitted, well, because she said it was just going to be your girlfriends. But then she's like, well, there's going to be some guys there. And I was like, okay, well, if there's going to be some guys there, can I go? And then she finally admitted, okay, it's a party. But she's like, it's Sylvie's party. And, so I was like, I'm not. And she was like, you're jealous, aren't you? And I was like, I'm not jealous. I'm just kind of upset that you lied to me. But, she didn't respect me. She didn't care about me. She didn't know that I discovered the theory of everything. She looked down upon me. And also right before this, like I said, she had called my mom because she wanted to meet my mom. And this is the reason why I liked her, was because I had told her, she said she wanted to meet my mom. But I told her I hadn't talked to my mom in like 20 years, but she was like, she thought there was something wrong with me. She was like, well, you need to forgive your mom and stuff. And I'm like, no, listen, I tried to. They won't forgive me. They won't talk to me. So then she starts to make assumptions. She's probably thinking, oh, well, then you must be really bad. And then she talks to my mom, and my mom's like, she wanted to meet my mom for Thanksgiving because she's pregnant with my baby. But my mom was like, no, she's not going to meet her because she's not going to see me. She's never going to see me. So then my ex is starting to make assumptions probably. Oh, Ryan must be really bad. He must really have schizophrenia like his mom thinks, So then my ex is, she definitely doesn't respect me at all, And so she lies to me that she's going to go to a party or to go to the movies, but she's really going to a party. And then like I said, everything, my anti-whiteness came back to haunt me because my grandpa would say my dualistic software, because then I go on Instagram and I see her friend Sylvie post videos of my ex at the party, and the party was the people who I knew. I remember during the pandemic, I was hanging out with, and one of the guys' names is Johnny, and apparently he kind of was a part of a race war in Phoenix. My friend told me, like a black race war against white people. But these people are just degenerate people. They're just drug addicts, and I see my ex at the party with all these degenerate drug addicts, like Johnny's there, but also like Sylvie, and also all these people who I know who they do a bunch of drugs, are just drug addicts, and they're basically Satanists. Like I said, during the pandemic, I hung out with all these people because, and I saw, but I never did any drugs or anything, but I knew these people because I've never done drugs in my life, but they're just drug addicts, and they're Satan worshipers. Like I remember I went to these two girls' house, and they had a Ganesha statue, but Ganesha is also, he's a son of Shiva, and Shiva is a god of destruction, but Ganesha is a god of wisdom, but wisdom's related to destruction, and I'll get to that. But and also they at my friend's place, at Johnny's place, they named their dog Shiva, and also they named one of their dogs Sephira because about the Sephiroth, because it's like Jewish. There's a connection between Jewish and Satanists because they're anti-white, a lot of them, right? So I'm not saying Judaism is satanic. It's not, but a lot of Jews are satanic though. And, I was hanging around with a lot of Jews who are anti-white, and a lot of these hippie, basically people who are very degenerate, drug addicts, anti-society, probably anti-white, and a lot of them are, yeah, but yeah. So anyways, but I basically see my ex at a party with all these drug addicts. So, and I knew all the people at the party, and I knew the house that she was at. So that kind of freaked me out. So I'll continue.